Hey guys, welcome to the AFL round 4 for the 2024 season betting trend report. In this video, I'm going to go through my early thoughts for all 9 games this weekend. We've got a full card, no teams have a bye, and all games being played in Adelaide. And for each game, I'm going to go through the betting trends and what the lines were and the odds were and the totals were last time and in previous matchups when these sides met. So just to quickly recap last weekend, the results, how everything went, and anything we can take away from it. So firstly, our bets last week in the AFL really didn't hit the mark. So I'm always looking to bounce back off that. And this is why I also look to diversify across multiple sports, because if one sport, the results aren't going your way when you're missing bets by a single leg and those kind of things, the other sports can pick up the slack, which is what the NRL did last week when we went 6-0. Also, so from the games last week, all the teams that won also covered the spread. That means that all 4 favorites that won also covered the spread in those games. And obviously, there was 4 underdogs who won their games outright. Those teams were Collingwood, who beat the Brisbane Lions, Essendon, who beat St Kilda, Melbourne, who beat Port Adelaide in Adelaide. So they're getting back-to-back games at the Adelaide Oval. And then also Richmond, who beat the Sydney Swans, who were the biggest underdog winner of the round. Of the games last week, 5 of the 8 went under the total points line. The overall season over-under record, 15 games have gone over, 14 games have gone under. Hasn't really been any standout trends so far. What I do with this information is I not only look at how it performs overall on the season, but I also look to zoom in on certain teams to see how they're tracking. So for example, you can see the Crows, all 3 of their games have gone under, and North and Port Adelaide, all 3 of their games have gone over the total points line. So then we can break down different segments and then also look back on this over the years. I posted a video back in the preseason going back through the previous seasons and how teams have performed from a total and against the spread perspective, as a favorite, as a home favorite, as you can see the columns down the side. And then from an ATS perspective, so far this season, home teams have only covered 14 of 15, so fairly even there. Favorites are leading currently, covering 16 of 29 games. And looking through the rest, favorites that are minus 30.5 or greater have covered 4 of 5 in those situations. So those big favorites are going on to cover. So that's a quick look at what's happened so far this season. Now looking ahead to round number 4, the opening game on Thursday night. And as I mentioned, all these games being played at the Adelaide Oval. So we'll also go through how teams have performed there in previous matches. And there's less to worry about with the weather in terms of the matches this weekend. It's probably good, with no games being played in Sydney this weekend, and the weather in Adelaide is fine with the rain predicted in Sydney. So Adelaide versus Melbourne on Thursday night. 5 of the past 6 matchups between these two sides have gone over the total points line. Last time they met, it was set at 164.5. When they last met in Adelaide, it was 161.5. They've jacked it up to 169.5 points for this game. So is definitely a touch high. To take the over here, I'd want a slightly lower number, especially on the way Adelaide has struggled to put points on the board this season. And so for those reasons, I am slightly leaning towards Melbourne to be winning this game. And I definitely don't mind them at the minus 6.5. They have covered 5 of the past 8 against the Crows and won 6 of the past 8. Melbourne's won the past 3. Last game, they only won by 4 points, but the 2 prior, they won by fairly big margins. At the Adelaide Oval, Adelaide do have a good record there, winning 10 of the past 13. This is a really important game for the Crows. They can't afford to go down 0-4 to start the season. So this is their best performance was at home against Geelong's this season so far. They were really bad against Fremantle last week over in Perth, and took a long time to get going against the Suns in their opening game. So this is kind of getting close to must win for Adelaide. So the motivation is going to be high, but Melbourne likely should be too good for them. And Melbourne have performed good at the Adelaide Oval, winning 8 of their past 11 there. So early thoughts are Melbourne to win and cover, and no real lean either way on the total at that 169.5. Brisbane versus North Melbourne. This is the early game on Friday. So it's around a 4 p.m. Start time. in Queensland, which would be 5 p.m. With daylight savings time. The Lions are a 35.5-point favorite. Last time they played North Melbourne, they're a 27.5-point favorite. This is another really important game for the Lions, which they should be winning, as the odds suggest. The Lions are a $1.13 favorite. They're still yet to win after losing to Collingwood last week. The Lions should win this and win it fairly comfortably. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to cover this 35.5. Like, there is a lot of motivation for the Lions to win and win this game big. And against North Melbourne, who, like, they play good in patches from what we've seen this season, but struggle to put it together for 4 quarters. North Melbourne also have never won at the Adelaide Oval. You can see they've lost all 11 matches there. Brisbane have also lost 3 of their past 4 there as well. So it's not like it's a great ground for them, but obviously those games have been against the Crows and the Power. Brisbane have won the past 6 against North Melbourne as well. Their past 2 games, they've put up over 150 points. For this game, I like the Lions to win and most likely cover. And I'll also be looking into potentially what their team total is for this game as a potential overplay on that. The primetime game on Friday night, Port Adelaide take on Essendon. The Power are 22.5-point favorites. Last time they met at the Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide were a 14.5-point favorite and won that game by 5 points. Essendon have covered the past 2 as an underdog, and the underdog has covered the spread in the past 4 in this matchup. Port Adelaide have a really good record against the Bombers, winning the past 7 straight. So definitely leaning towards Port Adelaide winning this game. Not super sold on the 22.5, but I think Port Adelaide win this game and win it fairly comfortably. 6 of the past 9 head-to-head have gone over. The total is 178.5 currently. Last time they met here at the Adelaide Oval was 173.5. So it's 5 points higher than that. But these sides matchups have been going over, and their games have been going over this season. So you can understand why that line is slightly higher, but definitely like Port to be winning this game. And we'll make a call on a play in that later in the week. Also interested in disposal markets when these 2 teams go together. So likely we'll have a same game multi on that matchup. West Coast versus Sydney, and all the plays we posted are coming up into the weekend closer to game times, and especially once lineups are announced. West Coast versus Sydney, the Swans are $1.03, 54.5-point favorites. Likely win this game and win it very, very comfortably. Last time they met was round 15 last season, and the Swans won 205-34. So big winners there. The line from that matchup was 57.5, so it's 3 points lower, but obviously at a neutral venue, not at the SCG. So effectively, if this game was at the SCG, this line would likely be closer to the -70 mark. The Swans have covered 6 of the past 7 versus West Coast and won 15 of the past 18. So obviously no, prize picking like Swans will win this game. It's just a question of how much they win by. 54.5-point line. Swans obviously want to bounce back after their performance last week, but they are playing back-to-back games on the road. So not really the most ideal situation. But I feel like there'll be really good disposal opportunities in this game for the Swans. They should be able to rack up the numbers. Interestingly, 7 of the past 11 in this matchup have gone under the total. However, 3 of those 4 have come in the past 5 games in going over the total. It's 5 points higher than their latest matchup, which Swans covered themselves. No real lean on the total in that game. But we'll definitely be having player disposal markets, player disposal bets on that matchup. Fremantle versus Carlton. Carlton are 0-7 at the Adelaide Oval, and Fremantle have lost 9 of their past 11. So both of them have really bad records here, but that's going to change for one of these 2 sides. The line is Carlton -5.5. Last time they met was in Perth in round 17 last season, where Freo were a 2.5-point favorite. With this game being played in Adelaide, I do like Carlton to win and cover. Fremantle have been good in both their home games against Brisbane Lions and against Adelaide. However, their road game against North Melbourne, it took them until the 4th quarter to really put the Kangaroos away. So definitely not sold on them playing away from home. Carlton should be able to win this game, and I'm more than likely be backing them at the small line. The team who has won this game has also covered the line in the past 12 between these 2 sides. And with the line at -5.5, likely whoever wins will also cover that. So we'll more than likely taking the Blues -5.5. Carlton's also won and covered 6 of the past 7 against Fremantle. The only time they didn't was in 2022 at Optus Stadium. The other trend for this matchup is 9 of the past 13 head-to-head have gone under the total. At 165.5, I'm not really sold on it going under that number. So would slightly be leaning towards the over, but I much prefer the line in that matchup. Western Bulldogs take on Geelong. Geelong have a really good record against the Bulldogs, winning 21 of the past 25. So based off of that, you instantly have to lean and give the edge to Geelong. The lines come up -2.5. Last time they met was at GMHBA in round 24 last season, and Bulldogs were a 4.5-point favorite. And that is one of those 4 games they've won over the past many seasons. 8 of the past 11 between these two sides have gone over the total. And I definitely like the overs in this matchup at 169.5. Can definitely see this being a high-scoring game. Both teams have performed well at the venue. These matchups have historically been higher scoring. The line isn't all that much higher than what they have been in previous matchups, so it hasn't been pushed up from that perspective. So if it hovers around that number, I'll definitely be backing the overs in this game. Gold Coast versus GWS, and I would be leaning towards the Cats to be winning as well. Gold Coast versus GWS. GWS have covered 7 of the past 8 against the Gold Coast, and they've also won 11 of the past 12. They come up 16.5-point favorites for this game. Last time they met, Giants were a 6.5-point favorite, and they won that game by 40 points. That was round 19 last season. GWS really should be winning this game. Both sides come into this off the bye. The Giants have a good record, winning 4 of their past 6 at Adelaide Oval, whereas Gold Coast have lost all 11 games there. So leaning to the Giants to win. Kind of when I consider how much I think they win this game by, I think the -16.5 potentially is a touch low. Could have this line closer to the -19.5, -20.5. Feel like it potentially could be a goal low, but I want to just look into that a little bit closer. Also analyze the teams coming into this game when they're announced. Past 4 games with these two sides have gone under, and the total is 4 points higher than their latest meeting at 170.5. So that's interesting. Both sides really capable of scoring this year, though, so I don't want to push too hard on the under there. Richmond take on St Kilda. The Saints are a 20.5-point favorite, which I feel like is a little bit surprising based off their performances last week. But you have to factor in the overall squads as a whole. And I feel like a lot of people may just look at last week, St Kilda losing, Richmond beating the Swans, and go, oh, Richmond's a good bet in this matchup. But the Saints do have a good record against them, winning and covering 3 of the past 4. Last time they met, the Saints were a 2.5-point favorite, won that game by 36 points at Marvel Stadium. Prior to that, Richmond did win the matchup earlier in the season at the MCG. No real, I'm not keen on backing the Saints at -20.5. I feel like the 1-39 is probably the best option from a head-to-head or margin, who's going to win line perspective. So we're kind of looking at that. When the Saints win, they generally don't blow teams out, and I feel like Richmond can hang around in this game. But another one where lineups are going to be important. Richmond both sides have actually struggled at the Adelaide Oval. The Tigers have lost 4 of their past 6, and the Saints have lost 3 of their past 4. So there's no real edge for either side. 9 of the past 12 head-to-head have gone over, and at 165.5, I'd be leaning towards the over in this game. So it's only 1 point higher than the last line when they met. And then last game of the round, Collingwood take on Hawthorn. Hawthorn won this matchup last season, and I remember that because I was at the game, and Hawthorn won as $5.60 underdogs. They're a 32.5-point underdog in that game. Collingwood come up a 23.5-point favorites. The line's 9 points lower than it was for their last meeting. This time, obviously, at a neutral venue where both teams have been pretty good. The Pies have won their last 8 at the Adelaide Oval, and Hawthorn have won 2 of their past 3 at the Adelaide Oval. So probably the venue slightly favors Collingwood. Collingwood, obviously, this is an important game for them to build some momentum off their last win against the Brisbane Lions. But back-to-back weeks on the road for them isn't really ideal after going to Brisbane and then to Adelaide. Hawthorn come into this game after playing on the Monday. So Collingwood do have an extended break where Hawthorn are on a short week with only the 6 days rest. So I feel like that kind of evens it out a little bit as well. So you can't really read too much into that, but obviously it's important factors to look at. Interestingly enough, and I feel like this is something that would surprise a lot of people, Hawthorn have won 14 of the past 17 against Collingwood. So the Hawks have a really good record in this matchup, and they've also covered the spread in 6 of the past 7 against Collingwood, all of those as an underdog as well. So from those trends, like there is a lot of value in the Hawks here. The line at plus 23.5 would also be leaning towards that. I'd either be considering Collingwood 1-39 or the Hawks with the plus. 4 of the past 6 head-to-head have gone under the total. Historically, like Hawthorn games have been really going towards the unders, so I'd slightly be leaning towards the under in this game as well. But looking for a play on Hawthorn at the plus, just based off their record against Collingwood, and Collingwood haven't been all that great. And, that's through when Collingwood have been a top side the past few seasons as well. So those are my early thoughts on the games this weekend. I'll be posting videos closer to game time with my exact bets, what I'm taking, what the selections are, where the best odds are for those selections, so you guys can follow along. I'll also be posting all that same information and doing a betting preview exactly like this one for the NRL as well. We went 6-0 last week, so reading the games pretty well in the NRL at the moment, looking for that to continue into round 5. So if you like this video, make sure you follow along on the channel, because I'll be posting videos like this, and in the game previews we go a lot deeper into the statistics and the efficiency ratings and the rankings for sides to break down those matchups. And if you're a fan of the AFL, and more importantly, you want to make money betting on sports, those are videos that you definitely want to check out.